let's look at the West breakdown. We got the Thunder, the Spurs, the Nuggets, and the Wolves, right, Matthew? So the West top two seeds combined for 126 wins this season. The gap between them and everyone else might be the biggest we've seen in like a decade. It's a lot of points. OKC finished 64-18 as defending champs, three straight number one seeds. San Antonio went 62-20, Wemby's first real playoff run. So Denver clinched the number three seed the other night by beating the Spurs 128-118, and they draw Minnesota, who's 49-33 at 3 versus 6 seed. So, Matthew, is the Western Conference Final already going to be OKC versus San Antonio, or can Denver or the Wolves crash the party?
I think if anybody crashes the party, it's going to be Denver. And this is why, if you're the Spurs, I get your protecting Wemby. I get you wanting for the playoffs. But you made it a lot harder for yourselves by losing to Denver last night, or if it was the night before. No, I think last night. That was the last night of the regular season. Yeah. You made it so much harder on yourself because Denver's been there before. Denver has a multi-time MVP in Jokic. Denver has a cohesive team with Murray and Gordon and Brown and Jokic and Hardaway and Bruce Brown. You know, the bench has struggled. Obviously, it hasn't. The only person I think that's really produced off the bench has been Hardaway. I think Bruce Brown's been kind of a flop for them. And I've been advocating all year for the fact they should have kept Westbrook as the backup point guard. And they haven't been getting production from the bench. But they have a main unit that's been there before that has Jokic, who's the ultimate weapon in the sport. So if you're the Spurs, why don't you play Wemby last night and beat them? So that way your path to the playoffs involves playing the winner of L.A. Because if the Spurs had beat the Nuggets last night, and let me pull up the standings, make sure I have this right. If the Spurs had beat the Nuggets last night, L.A. would have been the 3 seed. And that way, in the second round, you're playing the winner of L.A. versus the Timberwolves.
Right.
Whereas now, Denver's the 3 seed. I think most people would pick Denver over Minnesota, although you never know, because when you got a baller like Ant-Man, you can never count out a baller like Ant-Man, right? But now your path to the playoffs, if you're the Spurs, involves playing Denver in the second round, OKC in the third round. And so by the time you get to the finals, if you're lucky enough to get to the finals, you've had to go through the murderer's row of the West. You've had to go through the best teams. And I think Denver is the kind of team that if you're a young team like the Spurs that has never been there before, that's the kind of team that sends you back to level one. That's the kind of team you take your playoff licks from. So if you're the Spurs and you're Mitch Johnson, and they know more about Wemby's health than I do, but I think maybe should have tried to win last night and played Wemby.
Right. And now on top of that, Matthew, so let's look at so Joker has like 30 triple doubles this season. And Murray, he just scored 53 like a week or so ago, right? They have the championship DNA. They still have the core group when they went to the championships, right? Bro, I agree with you. They definitely the ones you got to watch out for. Anthony Edwards, like he's like made for the spotlight. He's made Mr. Highlight Reel, right? But besides him, I mean, what they really have to really just make it out of there, I really think they're going to go in the first round.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Denver. The Timberwolves haven't necessarily taken that step forward. You know, they went to the conference championship a couple times. They've kept the same team. I don't know that you have the firepower. And, teams in the playoffs always go small against Gobert to play Gobert off the floor. Julius Randle, we know that he's got limitations to his game as the second best player on your team. Yeah, I think, an old Mike Conley is going to be playing some serious minutes at point guard.
And let me say something about Mike Conley. I can't believe how much money he was making a killing. When you get a chance, go back and look at Mike Conley's his salary when he played for the Memphis Grizzlies. It was crazy. It was like one of the highest paid salaries at the time.
Crazy, in his prime, he was a very reliable point guard that can make the 3-pointer, not turn the ball over. And so I'm not saying he deserved like a crazy supermax, but in terms of what a reliable point guard is, Mike Conley's been that for many years. But
Yeah.
at this point, you got a Mike Conley that's 38 years old, maybe 39, and
Look that up.
is going to be playing some serious minutes in the playoffs. Coming off of the worst season of his career, but still logging like serious backup point guard minutes, and possibly will be starting some of these games. When you look at who's on Minnesota right now, when you look at what they are at point guard, they might be going into some of these games without a true point guard, because you got Conley, you got Bones Highland. It looks like a lot of these games you're going to be playing Ant-Man is kind of like your point forward.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I feel like maybe they could have invested somewhere along the way. They spent a ton of money. When you're spending that much money on Ant-Man, then you're spending that much money on Gobert, then you're spending that much money on some of these other guys. It looks like they're doing experiments at point guard, man. Like, you look at their last few games. And wow, Terrence Shannon Jr. with a random 33 points. Yeah, you look at these last few games, they're going with like different lineups every night. I don't know. That's what you want to be doing going into the playoffs. And they lost a lot of games.
Experimenting.
They're experimenting a lot. Mike Conley's even started some of these games. It looks like they're doing all kinds of different things at point guard. And when
because they got to figure out what's going to work going into these playoffs. They have to experiment.
But when you're experimenting to this degree, like I pulled up 5 different games and I'm getting 5 different lineups. When you're experimenting to this degree going into the playoffs, that's a bad sign. And when you are starting 39-year-old Mike Conley having his worst season of his career, because Mike Conley started a lot of these games, man. And I mean, if you think you get in a world where Mike Conley's guarding Jamal Murray, or God forbid, you win, and then next round, Mike Conley's guarding De'Aaron Fox. You don't love like some of these matchups for your 39-year-old point guard that I guess it looks like is going to be starting based on I'm looking at these last 6 or 7 games what they've done, and it seems like there's a pretty good chance that Conley's the starter, and it's almost like you're wasting a season of prime Ant-Man when you just don't have it figured out to that degree of point guard. And that's going to be something that Minnesota's going to have to prioritize in the offseason. But right now, I don't see them getting through Denver in the first